I'll open the table. Has anyone got any thoughts on how often to post? What's a good cadence? Anyone that's had experience or success from posting any messages on LinkedIn?
2 or 3 times a week. Sorry,
Matt.
I was just going to say 2 or 3 times a week, but to be honest, I only really post when things come into my mind. So I don't beat myself up if I haven't posted for a couple of weeks and then suddenly I'll get a flurry. But what I tend to do is I then schedule things as well. So before I get busy, I do it typically kind of Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then typically I schedule it for the mornings, kind of earlier in the week, like 8:30, and then in the afternoon on Thursday.
And Matt, have you found that's been a successful strategy? Have you noticed kind of things coming from that?
Yeah, I think so. Lots of engagement. It all depends on what the topic is. If it's quite unique, it tends to kind of get a lot more kind of insightful kind of reactions. But other ones they surprise you as well, right? So I think it's a bit of a mix. I'm still learning, to be honest.
Great stuff.
I think there's also an important aspect in terms of the LinkedIn algorithm, how often you post. And from what I understand and sort of research I've read, consistency beats frequency. So it's better to post a couple of times a week, every week, rather than do 5 posts in a week and then not post anything for a month, because the algorithm makes it more likely that your posts will appear in other people's feeds. And there's a lot of people who post on LinkedIn about how to maximize the benefits of LinkedIn, but that seems to be one of the key recommendations. And I about a year to 18 months ago kind of ran my own little sort of LinkedIn campaign post, and I went from something like 1,000 to 1,500 views per post to 10,000 or more. And I think a lot of it, just building on what Matt says, is you've got to find a topic that resonates. Sometimes I wrote posts thinking this is brilliant, and I'd have like 600 people view it. One time I wrote a post about my dog and I got 5,000 people view it. So it's just finding your unique tone of voice, and something that will stimulate engagement, and more engagement means more views. So more people who comment and share as opposed to just like it. So in some ways you have to be a bit provocative, because that's the thing that will stimulate more people to comment and share, rather than just write a good post and people like it.
I think imagery is a big part of the algorithm as well. So the more images you have on your post, certainly that's what I've had in my experience, is it's really kind of put my post kind of consistently at the top of people's feeds.
Any other thoughts, comments on that, Sam? If you've got any, and in fact, Sam, maybe now's a good time to just introduce you. And would you mind saying just a few words about sort of your background in this space and what you can bring today?
Yeah, perfect. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm Sam Rathling. I'm a LinkedIn expert and social selling specialist. I've been on the platform since its inception in like 2004. Initially in the recruitment space, so I have both kind of recruitment experience and then started teaching LinkedIn in 2010. So I'm happy to be here, answer any questions, share as much advice as I can today. So I'm happy to chip in on this question if you want me to, Barry, and then if people want to ask me things. Yeah, is that good?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Thanks, Sam.
So I mean, ideally you want to be posting a minimum 3 times a week. So, what Matt said there is, 2 to 3 times. If you're currently posting nothing, it's quite hard to go from 0 to 3. But if you aim for 3 a week, that's a good amount of posts to be putting out there. Obviously, the more you can do, the better, the more visible you are, and the more credibility you can share in your post, the better. One thing I will say, though, is that it's really important not to just post and ghost. So the first hour after you post is quite important. So if you start to get comments and engagement on your post and then you leave them sitting there and don't do anything with them, then the algorithm's not going to put any more eyeballs on that post. So you ideally want to be there to kind of babysit the post when it first goes out. So scheduling is fine if you're busy and you've got a crammed week, but if you schedule, it's quite difficult then to remember when that post is going out and then actually engage with that post. So you definitely want to be thinking about like the time of day that you're posting where you can be available to engage with that. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I meant when you was kind of finished, but when you've gone over your main kind of advice there, it's just the lots of tips and advice about algorithms that we hear, especially about when you should and shouldn't like your own post or comment on your own post or edit your own post. So just something to add on at the end, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, there's been lots of changes. The algorithm's always changing and no one really knows the secret code to the algorithm. Anyone that says they do is lying. So the key thing is that it used to be that you were penalized for editing your post. You're not penalized for editing your post anymore. It used to be that you being the first one to comment was going to damage the post visibility. That's no longer true either. So and the more you can drive meaningful comments on a piece of content, the more eyeballs it's going to receive. So what you ideally want is people commenting with at least 20 words underneath. So if you're going to comment on someone else's post or other people are commenting on yours, you ideally want to kind of drive that discussion under a post. So quite a good thing to do if you do receive a comment from someone is maybe to ask them a question back and tag them so that when they comment below, you're almost driving multiple paragraphs of discussion under a post, and that gets more traction and will show that post to more and more people. A couple of points that people made, like finding your voice, having an opinion, not being boring. Like it's very difficult to cut through all the noise that's on the newsfeed. So one of the key things with a strong piece of content is the hook, like the line at the very beginning, the line that you use at the start, having something that drives some kind of emotion. So if you guys Google the emotions wheel, there's like a big colorful circle that comes up. And if you use any of those emotive words in the hook of your post, you're more likely to drive engagement. So as an example, our CEO, Nick Jones, did a piece of content about some conversations he was having with our team members in one of his companies. So he could have done a post saying, oh, I had some good conversations with our team this week. But his post was, I'm disgusted with my staff conversations this week. And it was a whole post about, not about our team, of course, but it was more about the conversations he'd had about their bad bosses that they'd had prior to them working with us. So the post got, he only had about 4,000 followers at the time, but it received 80,000 impressions because he used the word disgusted and people were curious then to click on that see more. So what you're trying to do is drive people to click on see more so that more and more people are then viewing that post. Yeah, the emotions. Well, thanks for putting that in there, James. So it's about how you can, people are on the platform because they're bored or they're trying to sell something. They're the only two reasons people are on LinkedIn. So you've got to cut through that boredom and get people's interest so that they actually go, oh, that's a bit different. Think about what makes you stop on the newsfeed. What stops you scrolling? And make a mental note of that, because that's what will stop others scrolling and going to your content too. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Sam. I've been trying to organize the board while I've been listening as well. So I think you've probably touched on other questions as well that have come up, but we'll see what gets voted there. Adam, did you have a question? We've got about one or 2 more minutes just to cover off on this one, but
yeah, just one question really for Sam as a follow-up on that. So I kind of get about the causing using emotion and to provoke people into a response to a board, but then do you have any tips, I suppose, to translate that into something that drives an outcome, and are there in your experiences any tips that you have to, or any types of content that better do that than others?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, every piece of content you're putting out there, you're trying to do two things. You're trying to gain visibility and build credibility. They're the two things that equal opportunities on the platform. So whenever you're putting out a piece of content, regardless of whether it's educational or it's documenting, like there are some types of content that drive leads better than others. So a simple and easy type of content for everybody to do is simply to document your journey. So lessons you're learning on the way, projects that you're working on, where you, even if you can't name the client that you're working with, or you can't talk about what you're doing, you can still give context, like the types of things that you're solving problems for. So documenting, pulling back the curtains a little bit on kind of your world, both from a personal and business perspective, is a good thing to do. Ultimately, behind every LinkedIn profile is a human being. So wherever you can drive that connection, build rapport, etc. So documentary style posts work quite well. Wins and successes, where you can educate, those posts will do quite well. So the types of content that currently are performing well would be document posts, for example. That's where you create a PDF and you upload that as a document. You'll see a lot of those on the newsfeed at the moment, but that is one of the types of posts that's performing quite well. Polls are still doing quite well. So something, use them for research, use them for, creating insightful posts. And kind of when you're documenting, you're showcasing kind of what you do. So you're more likely to drive leads and opportunities from showcasing what you do and your expertise and credibility than you are from other posts. But at the same time, personal posts do perform better. But what you're trying to do when you do a personal post, for example, the dog example, right? Someone said, I got 10,000 views on my dog, and, I did a brilliant post that was about something else and it got 600. The point is, every time somebody interacts with your content, they are training the algorithm that they want to see more from you. So if they chose to engage with a post about your dog, the next time you post something that's actually useful, educational, and credibility building, they're going to see you show up in their newsfeed because the algorithm is linking the two of you together. So every interaction that they have with you drives them to see more of you, unless they unfollow you, of course. And the personal posts tend to connect as well. The more you kind of showcase all of you, not everything, but, showcase probably 80% of business related and 20% non-business related. But in the personal post, link it back to business. So if you're training for a marathon, build an analogy in there around how that links to what you're doing in work, for example. Things like that.
Amazing. Thanks, Sam. Thanks everyone for the questions along the way. Just as a final follow-up on this, how often to post, is there, like, we've got 3 cards here: when to post, what's the best time of day, and best days of weeks and times. 3 different people asking that question. Any thoughts and advice on that?
So if it's a good post and a good quality engaging post, it doesn't matter whether you post it at 3 in the morning, the weekend, first thing in the morning, really doesn't matter. It's going to do well. However, the best thing is to test and measure for your network, because everybody's networks are different. Okay. So I find that posting first thing in the morning, like kind of between, not first thing, but like, so let's say between 8 and 9 is a good time to post for my network. But I also find that evenings works as well. But my target market is quite mixed. So think about when your target market are online. So if you're targeting corporates or enterprise type people in larger companies, for example, they're not necessarily going to be sitting on their phone, on the weekends or in the evening on LinkedIn, but they might be more likely to be on there between 9 and 5, Monday to Friday. So just test it for your own audience, and maybe for a month, just try different things out and see how it works for you. I find weekends works quite well, and evenings, because the news feed is less noisy. There's less going on and more people are, on there. But then I work with a lot of entrepreneurs as well as, corporate and enterprise businesses. So just find what works for you. If it's a good post, it will fly whenever, as long as it gets engagement.
Cool. Thanks, Sam. Any other questions just before we wrap up then on timing or anything like that? And if not, and I would invite, please do come back onto the Miro board and vote, and get that link up there again for you. If there's any questions coming up, like, you've obviously got a flavor of what Sam's experience is there now. So if there's anything you'd love to hear her opinion on, then please vote on some of the questions on there. One thing that did have a few votes, James, you said about tools that make it easier. Is that something you want to share, or something you want to ask about, or can you go into a bit more detail on that?
It was more of a question. I've come across quite a few tools. I've seen a few people using tools to schedule things, to automate some of the messaging. I keep hearing, for example, that it's not enough to just put a post together, right? You should follow up with comments. As well as following up the comments, you should potentially connect with these people once you've demonstrated that you are a person of some value. And there are tools out there that do some of this for you. I think they're flying below the radar a little bit because LinkedIn don't have APIs and they don't really approve of it. So I get the impression some of them are operating in a bit of a gray area. But at the same time, I tend to forget to follow up on things. I feel like I could be doing a better job. And the computer is just fantastic at reminding me to pull my thumb out, so to speak. So if there are people who are finding tools work quite well for them, maybe not getting their account shadow banned or just completely kicked off the platform, I'd love to hear about it.
I know a little bit about this area. Funny enough, my brother works with a software company that produces a LinkedIn automation tool, and my daughter's currently working with them at the moment. There are a few tools out there. I've used one myself before called LinkedIn Helper. The company my brother works with is called Duck Soup, and I think you're right, James. You're kind of having to do it a little bit in the shadows, because if it's too overt, you can come across problems, I think, with the algorithm. In terms of practical experience, I've got a friend who works as an interim IT director, and he used one of these tools. I can't remember which one, but he was specifically targeting recruiter contacts, so headhunters and so on. And he added 3,000 recruiter contacts to his network in the space of about 3 to 4 months. And he was the one who was encouraging me to use the tool. He said it was invaluable. So I think the tools are out there, and there's lots of different tools. But as you said, you need to spend a bit of time, just like Sam said, curating your comments on your posts. You need to do the same if you're using these tools and people are responding to your connection requests, for example. But I think it can automate a lot of the donkey work, at least in terms of volume. I think you need to do a bit of your own work in terms of curating it from a sort of quality of network point of view as well.
Thanks, Aslam.
Anyone else with any experiences then on using tools or automations at all?
I just started trialing Clay, which I wouldn't say is a tool to automate LinkedIn, but it's an easier way to prospect. I was doing it very manually before. I use mostly Crunchbase, and I was finding companies there and then searching for them on LinkedIn, trying to find people in the finance function, manually connect with them, wait for them to respond, etc. But with Clay, you can scrape the data off of LinkedIn and import it as a CSV, and then do different enrichments of that data. So basically use the LinkedIn Sales Navigator functionality, and it will give you those people in a table, and then you can enrich their email addresses, and then also even export it to Google Sheets and select all of their LinkedIn profiles at once and open all the tabs at the same time. So I found that to be saving me hours a week, I would say. I think that's the link, James. Let me just test it out. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Katrina. Anyone else had any success with anything? Any other tools that are working?
I would just add on to that, just in terms of the tools, you do just need to watch how much you're using them and what you're using, because I know multiple people have had their accounts banned, lost, etc. from doing that. So just be very careful about what you do. It's completely against LinkedIn guidelines to use automation, and they are getting much more hotter on picking it up. So I'm an independent trainer, I don't work for LinkedIn, but use it with caution. That's what I would say. It can speed things up, but it's not recommended.
I've been threatened to be banned multiple times, and I've never, ever, ever in my life used an automation tool, and I have no plans to. But if I do too many connections in a request, in one day, they just think that I'm automating, even though I'm not. So I think it's incredibly dangerous, because not only are you building your infrastructure on land you don't own, but you're then violating the rules of renting that land. So you've only got yourself to blame.
Yeah, I've had the same warning only about 2 or 3 weeks ago when I tried to connect with about 15 people in the day manually. But to turn the question around, I think come back to sort of quality. That doesn't mean that you can't do things in a manual kind of way, with focus. And about 3 years ago, I was invited to record a webinar on technology leadership, and I didn't really have any ideas about what to speak about. So I contacted a few people, and I sort of an impromptu poll came out of it, and I only asked everyone one question, and I was doing it manually via LinkedIn and WhatsApp and email, so I wasn't even using the same kind of approach to it with people. And I contacted about 200 and odd so people, and I got about 120 replies, and out of that I was able to write or record a webinar, this organisation, and as a result of just approaching those people, those 200 people, I got 3 job offers or job opportunities. So it shows you don't have to spam or use automation tools to contact thousands of people. If you're focused and have something interesting to say, or something engaging you can ask someone about, and people I approach are quite willing to help, opportunities can come your way in that sort of fashion as well.
Aslam, I remember that story. We interviewed you a couple of years ago on it, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
I
think one of your early roundtables.
That's right, yeah. And the original kind of fractional interim space, a couple of years ago. Isn't that nuts when you look at how hard it is to get jobs through some platforms like job adverts for fractionals, where you see like what 1 or 2% of people get through, and yet sending a couple of hundred just requests for an answer for a poll, and you get 3 job offers. It's that's a great story, I think. And it's again, you think how many times have you actually done that? How many people have actually tried it? It's a great shout. Okay, cool. Any other tools, Sam? Anything else beyond automation tools? Anything else that kind of can help if you're if we've got a bunch of people here that are looking to use LinkedIn specifically to start trying to find roles or build careers as fractionals? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, from a content perspective, ChatGPT is great, not for necessarily writing content for you, but for research purposes, as long as you ask it the right prompts and give it the right kind of questions. So like that is the art with it, really, in terms of getting ideas. So if you do struggle for like, what can I post content about, it's a good tool to be able to use for idea creation, research, etc. But I wouldn't be using it to actually write your content. Yeah, I'm very anti-automation myself. You are, just to give you an idea of restriction numbers, up until recently you've been restricted by about inviting like 100 people a week was kind of the max. The restriction seems to be lifting a little bit at the moment, so we've got clients that are pushing out between 150 and 200 invites in a week. So I generally kind of go for about 20 a day. Like if you're actively searching and actively looking for work, then I would be pushing out invitations. And interestingly, we've tested, like we've got 300 members in our academy and about 50 people in our agency, plus our own work as well. So we see this across the board. But actually at the moment, sending a connection request without personalization, without a message, is more effective than sending a connection request with a personalized message. So we've been testing both because especially through the pandemic and lockdown, like LinkedIn suddenly became this place where everybody was like prospecting, and it went from hardly anybody doing it well to everybody doing it badly. So people now think that if they're going to receive, when they do receive a message, a connection request with a message attached to it, that they're instantly going to be sold to, and it's going to be automation. So you're more likely to get acceptances now from people that where you don't personalize and you actually just hit connect. So actually it's quite quick to do without automation, just by doing a simple search on your phone, finding the right types of people and hitting connect 20 times. You should be getting about a 50% response rate. That's a good gauge as to whether or not what you're doing is working. So 50% of the people you invite actually say, yes, I want to connect with you. 20 a day, 100 a week, that's 50 new connections a week. Regardless of whether you are looking or not, like build your network every day.
Amazing how quickly that adds up. Okay.
Yeah, so I've got a question about that, because I'm quite selective in terms of the things that I accept and the people that I invite to the platform. So that they need to be people that I've interacted with, right? And when I say interact, I mean like had a phone conversation, or being on a Zoom. So I'm quite skeptical of like building a network is one thing, but being targeted is another. So I guess what's your view on that, Sam?
So I think it depends what you're there for, right? So and it's everybody's personal preference. If you're there to get jobs and you're there to get work, I strongly would be urging people to build their network, even if you haven't had that interaction. A couple of things you can do beforehand: you can follow that person's content beforehand, you can interact a little bit with their post before you connect with them, etc. But for me, like, if you're out there and you're looking for work and you're looking for jobs and you're looking for people to come to you as a fractional, you need to be getting visible with the people that potentially could hire you. So if you are just relying on your first degree network to do that, or referral, etc., and you're not adding these new people in, majority of your work will actually come from the networks of the people you're adding in there, because it's almost like you've got this circle of influence. You've got your first degree connections, but as your network grows and as more people come into your world, you'll find that people that, say, for example, Matt, you did a post and I went and commented on that post. It's my network that see that I've interacted with your post, and now you've got exposure to my network. And a lot of your next best opportunity could come from your second or third degree network without you realizing it. So the more people you have inside your circle of influence, i.e. your first degree network, the higher chance you're going to get visible with their connections. So if I look at all, like over the years, if I look at all of the big opportunities I've landed, majority of them have come from people in my first degree network interacting with my posts, and people in my second degree stepping forward and saying, I've seen you in the newsfeed. So don't ignore the fact that those people in your first degree network have also got lots and lots of connections. You know, if you connect with me today, hopefully you want to after today, but I've got like 28,000 people in my network. So you're not adding Sam Rathling, you're adding Sam Rathling, but my 28,000 connections are all now in your second degree. One of them could easily be your next best, opportunity. So just don't discount people's networks when you see, oh, should I connect with this person or not? It's them plus their network.
And I think that's really a really interesting view, right? Like, I haven't struggled over the last 9 years of being a fractional to get work, and actually most of the work that comes from LinkedIn is basically people that I already know. And then where I get most referrals is actually offline, so it's actually kind of via email rather than kind of being introduced on LinkedIn. So I'll definitely consider that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Matthew, I can see you've got your hand up as well. Just come to you in just 1 second. But what's super interesting about what Sam has just said is Sam is only here because I saw a comment of hers in one of my first degree connections, and that was what, Monday?
It was Monday, yeah, exactly. And now I'm here.
Yeah, and that's it. So although it's not, officially a paid kind of connection or paid work, you never know. Sam's introduction here may lead to somebody being like, "That's awesome, yeah, I want to work with you." And so it's mad how that actually does, really does work, and it's sort of, interesting to hear it explained. Matthew Reynolds, got your hand up there.
Oh, hi Sam. Sorry, this question's not beautifully formed. So if I'm a fractional CTO, so if I kind of know my ideal customer profile looks like, for example, manufacturing businesses in the West Midlands,
yeah,
and I'm quite strong on posting and the content that I put out there, and I actually haven't been going round and doing connection requests to people who are in my ICP.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously I should be doing that, shouldn't I? Because then the posts are more likely to be seen by people in my first, because I tend to get people will tend to accept my request for whatever reason. But okay, so that's just, it's an obvious question really. I need to be inviting people in my ICP so they're more likely to see my posts, right?
Correct, yeah. So if you've got stuff on and you're happy at the moment and it's just about building pipeline for the future, 5 a day, 10 a day, pick a number, but just do it consistently, because every new connection, there's a 30 to 40% chance that the next time you post that those new people, because you've recently interacted, are going to see your content. So you're going to get visible with those new connections. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very easy to do, just using the search and the filters. So you can just go in there, choose manufacturing as your industry, choose location, the cities around the West Midlands, and just start connecting in with those people. There's a few techniques you can use. Boolean search, for example, for a lot of you as CTOs, so you would know that kind of logic, but you can start to use Boolean searches in your, just in the free version of LinkedIn. Of course, if you have Sales Navigator, it's a lot easier, but in the free version, you can very easily filter it down and just start connecting with those people for sure.
Cool. All right, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome. There's some, I've got some videos up on my YouTube channel about Boolean and finding your ideal client and things like that. So feel free to go and watch any of those. I think someone was watching one on the train earlier today. They messaged me.
Okay, so switching just slightly here then. So Alan, I think, who has actually just had to drop, but had an interesting question. What if I don't get engagement? Now I know you've kind of tackled this already with some of the ways that you might put, you know, some emotive words at the beginning, but any thoughts there? Well, firstly, any thoughts from anyone on how you've brought about engagement to your post, how you got more people to involve, to engage, or anything like that? Anyone had any success with something they're keen to share?
I think, as Sam said earlier, it's about kind of, well, for me, the things I see resonate with the people in my network are things that are like talking about my journey that actually aren't necessarily something like, unless you're going down the path, you wouldn't kind of really share like with your professional network. So how I started out, why I became a CTO, you know, like I think a lot of content I see on LinkedIn about, you know, like what would I have done differently, kind of knowing what I know now, those types of things. I think they're quite interesting, and they're ones that basically people get quite engrossed in, actually, because they scroll on and then they want to, you know, because I think people are quite intrinsically nosy, right? They want to kind of get into kind of what people are up to. So actually kind of getting into finding out something that actually you didn't know about them this morning, and even if they're a second or third degree contact, actually I've seen a lot of kind of reactions off the back of that.
Yeah, I think similar for me, actually. It's something that I've noticed with a lot of mine, because I'm quite regular on LinkedIn these days. Some of them do, you know, really well with over 50,000 impressions. Some of them that I think should do well are lucky to break 1,000. But the ones that seem to do regularly fairly well around the sort of 5K mark, I don't know if that's good or not, is the kind of post where you're offering, in a way, free advice, but a kind of cut down version. And that's something that seems to kind of resonate a lot and generate a lot of comments and, yeah, impressions, really. So I don't know whether that helps or not, or whether that's a good approach, but it's helped with my posts and with, you know, connections and engagement.
Yeah, it's a really good point that Mark made. You know, so many people are on LinkedIn to get, whereas if you go there to give, think like that's the mindset to go with. Like, how can I add value? How can I help people? How can I use my expertise without, you know, giving it all away? You need to think about all your knowledge and expertise as like tiny slithers of information. So think about maybe the top 6 to 8 topics, like on a macro basis, that are like big things that you could talk about from a content perspective, and then break each of those down into all of its tiny little slithers that you could talk about in terms of, you know. So Mark, what do you give me one topic that you would educate on or provide expertise on?
Oh God, I mean, I kind of relate everything to the kind of work we do as CTOs around commercially focused technical leadership, but I do try to add in a personal touch where I can, that you mentioned earlier. I mean, I link in things about, you know, birthdays or barbecues and things like this, but I do try to find a way to link it back to something work related.
Love it. So like technical leadership is like the big theme, and then within that there's so many things you could talk about related to leadership.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I've been doing a series of 6 recently with like 10 tips for, like, you know, junior software engineers all the way up to senior technical leadership, and then I'll do another one that kind of combines them all together with links to them all.
Love
so
that.
Things like that I've been doing. It's yeah, they've not been doing as well as I was hoped, those ones, but you know, they're slowly growing.
But again, I wouldn't get caught up in the metrics, like the vanity metrics. Like, just the more you are consistent, there are so many people that are the LinkedIn lurkers. Like, most of your work is going to come from the people that never engage, that never comment, that never like, but they're watching. So you just need to keep up with that consistency. Those numbers are great, by the way. Like, you know, if you've got some that are hitting 50,000 impressions, you've got, you know, you're averaging 5,000 and the odd one dives. It's like, it's fine. Just figure out like what ones work for you. There are some tools that I think Mark posted in the chat box. So I use Favicon as well. Like, Favicon's just launched. It's kind of in beta phase at the moment, but it gives you some additional analytics on your tools, looks at kind of influence score, things like that. But it gives you some additional analytics on your content. I think with everything, just track and measure. Just keep an eye on like what posts are performing well, which are your best performing posts, why was it that, etc. But if you're not getting engagement, it's probably because the post is either not interesting to people, didn't have a strong hook, didn't pull any emotion in there. There's lots of reasons why a post might not do so well, but the key thing is not to think, oh, my post didn't do well, I'm just not going to post anymore. Just be consistent and just realize that the odd post is not going to do well. I have it as well. Like I've got 30,000 followers and I still have posts that tank. So it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is.
Thanks for that, Sam. One thing that just popped into mind, if I can just briefly, is what are the kind of rules and tips around external links from a post on LinkedIn if you're posting off of the LinkedIn platform to other websites and blogs?
The key thing to remember is that LinkedIn makes its money by keeping us in LinkedIn. So I occasionally put an external link, like I might put a link out to a YouTube video or something like that. It's better to put the link into the post, like into the comments if you can, rather than in the post itself. It will do better. But if you're constantly sending people to a blog or to a website or to an external link, then the algorithm says, well, that post is taking people away from LinkedIn, therefore less money for us. So just think about the behavior that LinkedIn is looking for us to do. It's looking to keep the members in LinkedIn. So the more you can do that, the better.
That's great. Thanks, Sam.
Okay, great. So I'm going to ask another question here. So we've got about 13 minutes left. I guess at this point, if there's any burning questions, feel free to drop them into the meeting group chat here. But just one thing then, Sam, and I'm sure you're going to have a great answer to this and a lot of people are going to be interested in it. Can LinkedIn actually generate leads and clients and jobs and that kind of thing? We've got obviously a group of fractionals here that joined to find out more about how to find work as a fractional. Can LinkedIn do that? Can people proactively create a strategy that can make that happen?
And well, there's one area we haven't really talked about yet, which is a big important part to that. So the answer for me is 100% yes, but you've got to make yourself searchable. So your profile plays a big part as to whether or not you would A, get found if someone was looking for someone with your skills, and B, whether or not they would consider looking at hiring you based on like what you look like. So I would urge everybody to just take a step back from your profile as it is today and look at it and think, would I hire me based on what I currently look like on my current LinkedIn profile? If you look at what you've written in your about section, in your featured section, in terms of like how you're showing up, and have you got all the right keywords in all the right places to get you found? So the skills area of the profile is heavily used by recruiters and heavily used by people looking for particular skills. So when was the last time you looked at your skills section on your profile to make sure that all of the things that you want to get found for and hired for are actually correct and showing up in the right place? Is the order of it right? If you've got 50 skills on there, that only the top 3 show on your profile, are the top 3 the ones you actually want to get hired for? So I think the profile has a big part to play in that side of things, because people do use the platform to go looking for people with your skills. So if I was looking for a fractional, the first place I would turn to is LinkedIn. So if I'm going to go looking for a fractional, like do a search, run a search in, and also your profiles can get found on Google as well, because if you've optimized your LinkedIn profile and I go looking on Google for a particular keyword, you can get found over there. So I show up on page 1 of Google for LinkedIn Expert UK and LinkedIn Expert, and I don't pay Google a penny to do that. So are you getting found, first of all, because people do go looking for your skill set? If you are on have got your profile set up correctly and you are speaking the right language of people that you want to get hired by, is it really obvious that you're open to work at the moment? So if you are working in other projects, etc., make sure it's obvious to people. And then you've got to be showing up on the newsfeed consistently, engaging every day, posting, etc. I think a key thing here is that it's about having like the right habits and the right system in place to be consistent, because you can get really busy in the day-to-day and get wrapped up in everything, but I think it's about having that consistency around building a network, around engaging with the newsfeed and interacting with other people. And I think groups is a good place as well. Like we haven't talked about groups, but groups have had a bit of a bad rep on LinkedIn over the last couple of years, but they are great places to network and great places to find people. So don't just be in groups where your competitors are hanging out, be in groups where your target market is also looking as well. and build relationships with these people. The example of the poll is a great example. Like, it's not about DMing people and spamming people. It's about how can you add value to these people in a certain way, get conversations started, and how to cut through all the noise. You know, simply using things like a voice message or sending a personalized video message to somebody will cut through the other 200 messages in their inbox. How many of you are sending a personalized video to someone that you actually want to have a conversation with? You know, that's a way to stand out on the platform and how to cut through that noise. So there are a few things that if it were me and I was looking for that, that's the kind of thing I would be doing.
Great stuff. Any other questions at all on that, on finding leads and building those connections that way?
Yeah, it's just on the open to work. Like, do you even mean, you know, how you can put that different filter on, you know, like just on the picture saying open to work? Because I always wondered what the perception of that is.
I wouldn't be recommending that you have that on. It's just more within the about section that, you know, you
We may well have lost Sam. Okay. Oh, I think she's rejoined. Sam, are you back?
I am sorry. Power cut. I had a feeling that was going to happen. I had my phone on standby ready to go.
Amazing.
I've got a problem with my electrics and it cuts out now and again, but it's not happened on a live session yet, except for now. So apologies.
Okay, Sam, I think we got to the point where you said you wouldn't recommend.
No, I wouldn't recommend having the open to work like logo on around you, but I would say, for example, in your about section, have that you're currently working on a number of projects, but you know, like if you've got availability for one, like if you've got some kind of availability, what you don't want to do is look like you're super busy and you're not open. So maybe have something, you know, talk about the fact you're working on a number of projects at the moment, but you know, that you're always open to talk about potential opportunities.
Perfect. Okay, brilliant.
Just one thing that Sam said about optimizing your profile for keywords and so on. I think in LinkedIn you can access your analytics to see the most common terms that people have searched for you and how often you've turned up in searches. And I did that exercise Sam sort of outlined about 2 or 3 years ago in my profile, and I noticed that people I was coming up in search results for the sort of things I didn't want to be found for. And I revamped my profile, and over a period of probably a few months, I tripled the number of searches I was appearing in. But when I went and looked at it again recently, it's tailed off again. So I probably need to revisit that. But that's something quite easy that you can do with your profile.
Yeah, I mean, there are 7 places. I know we're quite near the end now, but there are 7 places you can put your keywords. So you can have them in your professional headline. You can have them in the URL, the very top. Like when you actually go to your profile, is it just a bunch of gobbledygook numbers, or have you actually put your keywords into? So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, it says Sam Rathling -LinkedIn expert in my URL for my public URL of my LinkedIn profile. You know, even something like renaming your photo and your header image with keywords in them, that will help. Having the about section, make sure that keywords are in there to get you found, the skills area, through your work experience. So without it being overtly like, oh my goodness, you're spamming your profile with keywords, like think about what are the main things you want to get found for. Because it's, you know, that is one of the ways you are going to get found. Like I spent 14 years in the recruitment industry. Like I use LinkedIn all the time to find great talent. So if you're not coming up in search results, just do a search on LinkedIn for what you'd want to get found for and see who shows up first, and then do a Control F and it will highlight all the places they've got that keyword on their profile. See who's beating you on searches for what you want to get found for, and go steal what they're doing.
It's a great shout. It's so easy, you know, all these things are so easy, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of work to do that. So, and it's great to hear that it actually works. Just quickly, I'm just going to post this link here. We do this every event. Hopefully that's the right one. Yep. So you can post your LinkedIn's there, and then if you want to connect and interact with anyone else that that signed up. I've started putting some of the ones from the main page there, but it just means if you open it now, and then you can obviously just do the connections afterwards, and see what happens. Okay, one final question for Sam, or to discuss with everyone. I'll tell you one thing that I'm interested in. When you're creating content, when you're writing, do you have to write for your ICP? Do you have to write for your target audience? Like, to what extent should you gear? Like you said, a lot of people are on LinkedIn to get rather than to give. So if you're going to give, do you have to give to your target audience? Can you give to various different people? Can you share advice? Can you write things for various different people? How focused should your content be on a particular, on your target market?
I actually find it easier to just write as if I was writing to one person. So let's say I've had a conversation with a potential prospect or somebody that's looking to work with me. I know what their challenges are. I know what their pain points are. I know why they need me. So I actually find it easier not to talk to a big, massive group, but sometimes just to talk to that one person. But they don't necessarily know I'm talking to them, but I think it can make it easier on us to actually write as if we were writing to them. Does that make sense?
It does. It sounds like something, Nikki, that you've been doing to me since our initial conversation. I was crying on the couch about the business, but yeah, no,
absolutely, Barry. That's what I only ever write to people who are running tech or complex businesses. I write every single post to them, and whoever else wants to get involved, that's absolutely fine. But that's who I write to.
Nice. Good stuff. Does anyone have any other questions?
Speaking to them, the better.
Oh, sorry, Sam. I think I cut you off there.
I just said the more that they feel like you're speaking to them, the better. So whoever is your target market.
I think the tech has taken Sam out on 2 different places now, unfortunately. Okay, does anyone have any other thoughts, questions, comments, or anything they wanted to make? We've got about a minute left. I think we're good. Well,
if there's nothing else, sorry, I was just going to say, if there's nothing else, can I ask what the general consensus is on drinking a bottle of wine on a school night? Is it acceptable, or am I a bad boy?
Definitely do it and write on LinkedIn about doing it, Mark.
Maybe not the full bottle, maybe just half.
Create a poll on LinkedIn.
Yeah, there you go. Brilliant. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone for being here. Massive thank you to Sam as well. Obviously feel free to connect and look at Sam's LinkedIn page and posts and videos and all of that. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.